Absolutely. I definitely hit rock bottom and I had the choice to sink or swim. So I decided my life deserves to be happy and peaceful, and I decided to get up and dust myself off and survive.
Insight and awareness, spiritual explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional and spiritual mentor and award-winning author, Lorraine Nilon.
Welcome explorers, and thank you for being part of the adventure. And remember, like and subscribe if you want to have any more information about reconnecting to your soul, recovering from the wounds we carry, and also rejuvenating your zest for life. And today we have a special guest. We have Faith Echo, and she's a licensed social worker and she's a recovery coach for narcissistic abuse stress disorder. And she's the author of Rising from the Ashes, a testament of strength and survival. So thank you, Faith, for being on board.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show.
You're welcome. I'll tell you what I really enjoyed and I thought nailed it. When I looked at your book description was, what do you do when you hit rock bottom? And I thought that's a really good question. So, and I presume that is the basis of your book.
Absolutely. I definitely hit rock bottom and I had the choice to sink or swim. So I decided my life deserves to be happy and peaceful, and I decided to get up and dust myself off and survive.
Yeah, brilliant. So can you give our listeners a bit of an idea of what actually happened? And, we're obviously talking about narcissistic abuse.
So I was in a relationship for 4 years with a malignant narcissist. I had absolutely no idea what was happening. This was somebody I loved, and we were spending our life together. We have a child together. And then maybe after the first couple of years, he just started to change. It was like a light switch went off, and he became emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, and I just was completely eroded. I had zero self-esteem, lost my self-worth, and as soon as I discovered that it was an actual disorder and I started doing research and I heard other stories, I realized I was not alone and that there was a label to what was happening to me and that it was possible to get out and heal. And I wanted to share my story for others who are going through it, to let them know there is hope and there is a way out to heal and thrive.
So when you say malignant narcissist, what do you explain that to people? Because there's all different labels for different types of narcissistic traits and types of abuse. So if you just give our listeners a bit of an idea of what you mean by that.
So there is like a spectrum of narcissists. On the extreme end are the malignant narcissists, who are the most dangerous. They are the nastiest, the most dehumanizing, the most abusive. A lot of the times it turns physical, and it's just the worst part of the spectrum for sure.
Yeah. So I believe that no abuser, all abusers, I should say, have narcissism. You have to be able to be indifferent to the person that you're abusing to do any form of abuse. And that's the basis for how I explain narcissism to people. That's the basis of it. Their ability to be completely indifferent to the cause and effect of their own actions and words. And there's a delight they take from watching someone implode within themselves and not know how to handle the narcissistic abuse stress, which was, I really like that that's what you're coaching people through, the recovery process of the stress of that, because I don't think that's talked enough about.
Absolutely. Yeah. These people have zero remorse. They have zero empathy. They have no self-awareness. All of their actions are premeditated. They have an agenda for everything, and basically sociopaths, like somebody who can abuse another human being. And it's the opposite of who I am. I'm an empath. I want to help people. So we don't really realize that cruel people like narcissists actually do exist in the world.
Yeah, I think because we all want everything through our own filters, don't we? So you want to care, you want to nurture, you want to support. So when you're actually being abused, where it starts off, emotional and verbal abuse, you're still justifying and defending and trying to work out what's upsetting the person so you can help them. You're not your automatic response for anyone, I don't care who you are, your automatic response isn't to go, this person is deliberately trying to hurt me. Once you get informed and you start to understand who the narcissist is, and you start seeing the patterns and the traits and all the rest of it, that does slowly start to decline. So you start seeing
Absolutely.
them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Once you realize that they actually are deliberately trying to hurt you and blame you, and I definitely felt guilty. I thought it was me. I thought I kept upsetting him. I thought I need to step up my game. And then I thought, well, maybe he's just stressed at work. Maybe he just has something else going on. And it took me a long time to see that it actually was calculated hurt that he was inflicting.
One of our former guests, she had the activating event, which I love. What was the activating event that allowed your denial or your resistance to really acknowledge who this person was? What was it that got your attention?
Well, from the beginning, my gut was screaming and my intuition kept telling me something was off. And I did not want to hear it because on the outside he seemed so perfect, and then just little by little, things started to shift and started to happen, and the names he called me and the possessiveness, and I realized that all of my people in my life had like fallen away because he got me so isolated. And I saw that it started affecting our young son. He developed a stutter, and then he physically started to threaten me, and it was just very, very slowly until one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I had lost 30 pounds, and I just said, something is not right. So I was talking to a girlfriend and she started to tell me about narcissistic personality disorder. So I started to Google and research, and just everything about them was spot on. And I felt like they were telling my story. So that's sort of when the light bulb went off for me.
Yeah, and once it goes off, it can't be turned off again, can it? Like,
Mm-mm.
once you start to see it, then it's blatantly
No.
obvious. I get a lot of clients that say, "I can't believe that I stayed in that for so long. I can't believe all these things." And I was like, it's slowly pushing your boundaries further and further away. The person you were when you first started would never have put up with that stuff. But it is that creep. Once you're invested in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a partner or business or anything, you're trying to create harmony within that relationship. So you just slightly move your boundaries, and to the point that you then realize that you have none left, which is
Absolutely.
yeah, which is the hard
And
and that's the hard part to get your head around, is that this sounds harsh, and I don't mean it as harsh, is that really, for me, when you're looking at recovery, you need to acknowledge the part, not that you deserved it or that you played in it, but the part that your reactions to it. Otherwise, you get very stuck, and that's hard to look at.
it really is. And I feel like once I had enough and I started standing up for myself, things got so much worse. So much worse because, like you said, I started the relationship one way, and towards the end, I no longer knew who I was. I was accepting things that I never would have, and
Yeah.
it was very, very slowly how it all happened.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what form of narcissist they are, they're always retaliative. They're always so the more that you were identifying it, the more they're under threat. So it
Oh, absolutely.
escalates. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So what are the red flags of toxic relationships? What do you want people to look out for?
Well, number one, like I said before, if something does not feel right, it isn't right. If
Yeah.
something feels too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
If you start losing who you are and compromising your values because this person gets upset and you're trying not to upset them, or they try to isolate you, or they try to change who you are, or they make you feel bad about yourself. I feel
Yeah.
like you should be with a partner who builds you up and is like your cheerleader. And if they're constantly knocking you down and calling you names and you find yourself sad most of the time, then it's probably time to get out.
How do you feel when you look back over your history? How do you feel about yourself now?
I did go through the motions of why did I stay? What was wrong with me? And then I'd go back to feeling guilty, like maybe it was me, maybe it was something I could have done better. And you just go through all the motions. And I never had any why me moments, like poor little me, why did this happen? It was more a deep soul search on to understand why I let it happen, why I put up with it, why I stayed for as long as I did. And I did uncover a lot of childhood wounds and pain that I was holding on to. This fear of abandonment, this fear that I was unlovable. And
Yeah.
it really took me a long time to get to that place. And I've done all the work to realize that I am worthy, that I am enough.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Actually, it's interesting because one of the things that I explain for narcissists is that they're very good at reading your weaknesses
Mm-hmm.
and what I would class as a strength, like kindness, compassion, patience, all those things I class as a strength. They class them as a weakness, but they also class them as a place to play where they
Mm-hmm.
can go in there and manipulate. So you're being compassionate and supportive, and they're using that against yourself. So by the time you actually realize what's happening, all of a sudden we turn it back on ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and we do it's a shame reaction of
Mm-hmm.
there must be something wrong with me because this person's is not appreciating my compassion, not recognizing my patience. I must be doing it wrong, which is very, very typical in any relationship and very harmful in an abusive relationship.
Absolutely. They try to get you to confide in them and tell them your biggest fears or how much you do care about people and how much you do for the people you love. And it's like they're taking mental notes so that when you least expect it, they can throw it back to you like a Molotov cocktail. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it's like, an emotional one.
absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's funny because if you haven't lived it, it's really hard for people to understand it. So, but when you've lived it, you kind of have to get a sense of humor about it because it's just like, yeah, that's a beautiful sum up of what they actually do. So
Yeah.
there's all these little grenades going off, and you're like, why? You can never, you, and sometimes there's no trigger. Like, people try to go, oh, what did I do wrong to trigger the narcissist off? You did nothing. You breathed. They just decided here was the moment. You looked too comfortable, actually. Or you were smiling and laughing and happy. Got to take that away from you. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Retaliation and depriving you is sort of the the fuel that feeds them.
oh, absolutely. Retaliation. And to your point, unless you've been involved with a narcissist, you absolutely have no idea just the insanity that ensues it. And I saw a meme once. It was kind of funny, but not really. It says that when you're in a
Yeah.
relationship with a narcissist, it's like getting arrested. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Very true.
Yeah.
When you least expect it.
Oh, yeah. As soon as you let your guard down, then bam.
When you're looking at when you hit rock bottom, what was it that gave you the strength to actually, right, I need to turn around and start dealing with my reality?
Well, my lowest point got to, because I was just so mentally and emotionally hijacked by this guy. I could no longer show up for myself, but most
Mm.
importantly, I couldn't show up for my sons. And that's what still cuts me the deepest to this day. And I have a lot of healing to do with them. So I thought, you know what? Maybe it's better for my sons if I'm just not here anymore, like on this physical plane. So I checked myself into a motel, and I was just going to take a bunch of pills and bottles of wine. And just, I thought I can look after them better from above than here on earth. And then I just sat there and I thought, what has my life come to that I actually am considering no longer living it? So that
Mm.
was a huge, huge moment for me. So my sons absolutely gave me the strength to pull myself out of it.
Yeah. And I'm glad in that moment that you realized that you were worth way more than that belief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's part of the ramifications of your abuse. That's not you. That's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, been stripped away. So to get to that point, you've lived under extreme control
Mm-hmm.
because that's controlling everything, your belief system, your thoughts, your self-esteem, everything. So how do you explain that to people? Like, what do you want them to know about that?
Well, the control went so far as to hide hidden recorders in the house that I didn't know about until afterwards. A
Right.
GPS tracker on my car, my texts being read, my phone messages, my emails. I was not allowed to go out with anybody or spend time with my sons, or just completely controlled in every sense of the word.
So for our listeners, and we have people that might be sitting in that absolute despair that you once were, what is it that they need to know that's going to bring them forward? Like if you've got someone that is completely controlling you, and can you give us some insight into the type of control methods that he was using?
So there was financial control for sure. Um, he controlled who I hung out with, where I went, what I was allowed to do. And it was just a lot. But what really, really, really helped me was knowing that I was not alone, because I did a lot of research and I heard a bunch of podcasts about women, men who were in my situation and were able to get out. So it
Yeah.
gave me tremendous faith and hope and inspiration to know I wasn't the crazy one. I'm not alone in my struggle, and reaching out for help, like surrounding myself with people who loved me and trying to do things that were good for me, like yoga and just taking walks and starting to I just had faith in the universe, like unwavering faith. I knew that it always had my back and it would lead me to the right people and the right opportunities to help me get out of the situation. And I knew that the journey was going to be very hard and scary and excruciating, but I just never gave up on myself. And for anybody that is in the situation where they are in the relationship, know that it's your birth given right to be happy and loved unconditionally and live a peaceful life. And you can get there because you are worth it. And there is a way out.
Yeah.
And I recommend professional help. Therapy really, really helped me a lot. And again, just surround yourself with people who love you and appreciate you and celebrate your authenticity, and you will make it through to the other side, because I didn't think that I would, and I've never been happier in my life.
There you go. And you've even wrote a book about it.
Exactly.
So when you were sitting there, that wasn't your thought, was it? It was like, one day I'll write a book about this. It's like, it's funny when you look where you were to where you can end up. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I never in my wildest dreams would ever think that I would write a book, especially about this topic. But you know what? If I had to go through it so that I can help other people based on my personal experience, then that's the silver lining.
Yeah, yeah. And we can learn from other people's experiences. So, because I think the biggest trap is that people feel so isolated and so I'm the only person that's dealing with this. And I often get, why is everyone narcissist this, narcissist that? And I explain it as that we didn't have the word for it before. We looked at, and I did this even in my writing 20 years ago, I looked at manipulation and I looked at, gaslighting. We didn't really even have the word for it then, and different things, but they're all separate components where narcissism is a combination of so many different things. So the word sort of gives you an overview, and the more, if you are in that kind of situation, the more education you get about it, it
Mhm.
pulls you away from believing there's something wrong with you,
Mhm.
and it opens the blinds to see this is deliberate behavior and that there's a feed from it. He or she, regardless of the sexes, is feeding off your sense of the demise of your self-esteem and
Mhm.
self-worth and independence and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's a big thing, and then like you said earlier, it's on a spectrum. So
Mhm.
some aren't as bad, you know, and then you have the other ones that are extreme. And it's
Mhm.
always shocking because for you, that's not where you started with that person. So, you said earlier that things started to change. So that alone makes you think you're doing something wrong because you believe, well, that person was, friendly and happy and all the rest of it, and all of a sudden they're not.
Mhm.
I must be the cause of it, because we're always trying to create a sense of safety for ourselves, and we
Mhm.
believe harmony creates safety. So we
Mhm.
start looking for ways to pull back the harmony, which normally has the compassionate person being the people pleaser and trying to anticipate what's going to trigger them off. So it starts this whole game of trying to anticipate every move. I had a client once, and she said Friday night special. Every Friday night he would go to the pub, and she was quite elderly, so this is back in the day. And she said, 7 o'clock he'd come home, flog me, sit down, eat his tea, and go to bed. And she said, so I started just opening the door, like just standing there, get it over and done with.
Mhm.
And tea had to be on the table at 7 o'clock,
Mhm.
not warmed up, not reheated. So she had turned herself inside out and trained herself to have tea on the table at 7 o'clock. And then he came home early one day, came home at 6:30, and he gave her an extra bashing
Mhm.
because tea wasn't, and she goes, "But it's not 7 o'clock." Got a bashing for even suggesting that he was inappropriate for bashing her. And she just said there was a look in his eye that was it. She said, "This, I knew this was never gonna stop." And this is her words, not mine. "The problem was that I decided that I could appease this in the beginning, and I could never appease this, and that he was never gonna change, and I deserved nothing else but opening the door." And she said, "I opened the door and walked out, never looked back."
Good for
So
her.
yeah, yeah, but it took that break in the pattern, the established, you come home at 6:30.
Mhm.
That was, yeah, and she said it was really weird, just that break in the pattern. I was like, that's how controlled people can become when
Mhm.
they've been chipped away, chipped away, chipped away. Now, if he did that the first time that they went out, she wouldn't have gone back out, so it's
Of course.
very orchestrated.
Absolutely. They lure you in, and then slowly the mask starts to come off, and by then you're so entangled, it's hard to get yourself out of it for sure. And it does provoke a lot of anxiety, and you're always walking on eggshells because you don't know what's going to upset the person. And like you said, we blame ourselves because we
Yeah,
think, well, they've changed, it's obviously something we're doing wrong, we're upsetting them, we're disappointing them, and it's just all very sad. But I'm very happy that your friend had that aha moment and was
yeah,
able to get out. Yeah.
yeah, 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 and it's a big thing. I think everybody has those aha moments, so when you have them, don't fight them.
Mhm.
Like you're now looking at reality without the filter of shame or embarrassment or guilt or blame or all those things. It's that moment where that subsides. So,
Mhm.
and they're all not, you don't deserve any of those things anyway. That's the sad part. All these filters that become created, you never ever deserved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they say when somebody shows you who they are the first time, you should believe them.
Yes. I wish I did that.
Only that easy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, when you look back in history, you go, "Oh, it was all there. Nothing was hidden. It was just you ran it through a different filter." Like, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So we ask every guest, what does humanity need to acknowledge and understand for us to evolve?
I think we need to be compassionate with other human beings and know that we all originate from the same place and we all share that universal love, and just be kind to each other. Just realize we're all on this planet having a human experience, and just be kind to one another. I think that would be my biggest my biggest point.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Actually, kindness is very undervalued. So,
Mhm.
and when you need it, especially when you're hitting rock bottom, I'm sure those people that showed you kindness, you'll
Mhm.
never forget. And
Absolutely.
and they might not think that they've done a lot, but, kindness is one of those things that when you see it, genuinely see it, it's like it stays with you.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
remember one of my girlfriends one day asking me how I was doing, and she genuinely meant it, and I just started crying because I couldn't remember the last time somebody asked me how I was doing. And it was a moment of kindness to see that she genuinely did care about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a brilliant thing. So if someone's picking up your book, what are they actually getting? What's is it? Tell us about your book.
So it's a memoir of a relationship I escaped 2 years ago from, like, literally at 3 a.m. I took my 3-year-old son out of his bed and had my friend pick me up with her headlights off, and I escaped. It recounts every ugly experience that led me up to that painful, terrifying moment. It shows some of the beautiful times where he was pretending to be somebody he wasn't. I have a lot of information in there about narcissistic personality disorder, the abuse, coercive control, a lot of resources on how to heal and try to help people understand why they feel stuck in those relationships. I feel like after people read it, they will have hope. They will know they're not alone, and they will feel like they will have gotten their PhD in narcissistic abuse.
There you go. Actually, it's known as a very honest book, very honest and vulnerable book. So you haven't held back.
Oh, I
So
just laid it all out there, just very raw, bare. I totally just laid it out there because I wanted to detail every single thing that happened and just share my experience so that it can help people. So, yes, there was no holding back with this book.
that's good. So when when you're looking at narcissism, what do you think is the major damage that it does to people?
I think it completely erodes people's self esteem.
Yeah.
It causes them to lose trust in other people, it causes them to lose trust in themselves. It steals joy, it steals feeling peace and safe, and it's just very emotionally and psychologically damaging.
Yeah. So if any of the listeners are dealing with it, what do you think their first step towards recovery?
I think the hardest part, but the most important part, is to radically accept that who you're with is a narcissist. They will never, ever, ever change. It will get a lot worse. They are not who you believed them to be. Once you reach that level of acceptance, I think try to make a strategic plan on what your next steps will be on getting out of the situation. If that means going to a domestic violence shelter, if that means sleeping on your friend's couch, just try to remove yourself from the situation. Embrace every emotion you're going to feel, because you're going to feel guilty and angry and sad, and just hold space for all of those feelings, because we
Mm.
cannot outrun them. And just be patient with yourself. And it's going to seem insurmountable, but again, surround yourself with people who love you. The more support you can get, the better. And just know it's a long journey, but it can be done.
Yeah, and it's worth it. You're worth
It's
it.
absolutely worth it. Yes.
Yeah. I love when you said you can't outrun your emotions.
Hmm.
Yeah. Feel them, deal with them. So
Absolutely.
it's time to do flip the book. So are you happy to do an intuitive exercise?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So would you like book 1, 2, or 3?
3.
So that's spirituality, evolution, and awakened consciousness. So you've got pages 1 to 188 to pick from.
188.
You've only got one paragraph. So if you are confused about how you feel and why you do what you do, gathering information and getting answers is a brilliant way to walk from one door into another.
Okay.
Yeah. So where does that take you?
That's very interesting, because I feel like a lot of times I don't want to acknowledge things or go deep into thought patterns or behaviors that are not healthy for me. So I think really sitting with that and looking for the answers will help me get to situations I don't want to be in, to open
Yeah.
the next door.
Yeah, it's good, because one of the things, because you nailed it before when you said, we try to outrun our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't always turn around and deal with them all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So you deal with what you can, and then there's layers. There's layers to every emotion. So when you feel more stable, you can open the door a little bit to those different patterns and emotional patterns, thought processes, and deal with the next layer. And I get a lot of people that sometimes, I'll use resentment as an example, and they'll go, I've dealt with my resentment or self-loathing or whatever it is. And then you go, well, it's come up again. So it's like there's another layer, but that doesn't discount all the work that you've already done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you are now capable of going a little bit deeper, and you'll take
Absolutely.
this. Yeah, and it's worth going into those deeper recesses. So if someone was journaling, what would be a good journal question you would give them about opening doors?
Do you want to be in this exact situation 1 year from today?
Yeah, it's a good question. Very good question. I want to thank you for being part of this, and I've enjoyed the conversation.
So have I. Thank you so much for giving me the platform to share my story. And it's amazing that you do this, because you're helping a lot of people as well.
Yeah, it's a big story, and it's a rising from the ashes. Anyone that's walked out of any type of abusive relationship, and there's no scaling system on abuse,
Mm-hmm.
so it is rising from the ashes. You are taking yourself from that bottom depleted. Sorry, I love the title, because
Thank you.
it's good, and because that's the rebuild, and it takes time and it takes years, and there's so many layers. You'll think you'll be walking along going, yeah, I've got this sorted, and all of a sudden, bang, something else has come up, or you're feeling something and you're wondering why it come out of the blue. And to me, that's part of the evolutionary process,
Mm-hmm.
that you're resolving what's unresolved within you, so you can keep evolving, keep changing, keep transforming, all the buzzwords, but basically come back to truly understand who you are without all those beliefs on top of you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much.